Hello, everybody. I'm going to give it another few seconds, let people hop on the webinar, and then we'll get started very shortly. All right, I'll get going and we'll just have people join as we go, but we're just going to start with introductions. So thank you, everybody, for coming today to our info session. We're going to be chatting about electric vehicle chargers for the workplace. Today's session is hosted by Green Economy London. And who am I? I'm Natalie Merchant. So I am the hub manager at Green Economy London. And I will be your host for this webinar. So if you guys have any questions, a little bit of housekeeping, please feel free to add it into the chat, introduce yourself, let us know where you're from. And if you have any questions, please put them in the chat. We'll be addressing them at the end of the presentation. We'll have lots of time to go through questions. So please, throughout the presentation, head to the chat and add your questions in there. So Green Economy London is a program run through the London Environmental Network. We're an environmental nonprofit organization in London, Ontario. Our vision is to have London be known as one of the greenest, most resilient cities in Canada. And our mission is to build, participate with collaboration, capacity in the community to co-create positive environmental change. We host a variety of different programs. And one of them is Green Economy London, which is the business sustainability program that is helping host this event today. And most of you on the call are probably Green Economy London members, so thank you for coming. We are also part of a national network of hubs, Green Economy Canada. Some of you may have heard that Green Economy Canada currently has an EV charger incentive right now for 50% off chargers. So if you guys haven't looked into that, I'm going to be adding a link into the chat soon so you can have all the details to where to apply and to get more information. But I did want to mention it in this webinar that is currently live right now for underrepresented groups. It's available, and if you want some details on who falls into that category, it'll all be on the link I send. And it's open for every organization starting March 21st. So if you guys are looking to do EV chargers, hopefully you'll get some more information through this session today, and don't sleep on it, get started on it as the application goes live to everybody March 21st, and we recommend getting your application in as soon as possible. So just a quick little background on that incentive. So it is through they did have funding through the federal government. So it is for 50% off chargers. This is what the different amount of funding you could get per charger. So the most common chargers you'll see are the level 2 chargers. You can get up to $5,000 for charger, which is roughly 50%, depending on the type of charger you're getting. And fast chargers, you can get up to 15,000. You can get some faster chargers, the 50 kilowatts to 99 kilowatts for 50,000 per charger, and you can get up to $75,000 per charger for the fastest chargers. Each applicant can get up to $100,000. So if you are applying for more than one charger, you can get up to $100,000 per applicant. So you can, if you're doing an application, you put your multiple chargers in the application. So if you have any more questions about this specific funding, please email me. And I will also be putting the link in this chat here so you guys can go right to Green Economy Canada's website. They have people working full-time on this program, so they'll be able to answer your questions ASAP. So they did do also a webinar a few weeks ago on just the incentive. So if you want more details on the incentive, there's already that available for you right now on their website. So we're hoping today to give you some more details on what you need to get started to do this application, because there's a little bit, you need to kind of have the project laid out before you do the application for this incentive. So hopefully this webinar will give you some more answers onto why you should be applying, what you need to do to apply. So yeah, these are our sponsors for Green Economy London's program. This helps make these events possible. We currently have over 45 different members in our organization. And if you want to know more, feel free, or learn more about Green Economy London, reach out to me at natalie@londonenvironment.net. And stay connected, follow us on our social medias, and check out our website. So without ado, I'm going to introduce our first speaker today, Cara Clairman. She is the president and CEO of Plug and Drive, a nonprofit that is accelerating the adoption of electric vehicles through the education and outreach to maximize the environmental and economic benefits that EVs can provide. So I'm really excited to have her here today to chat more about EV chargers in the workplace. So without ado, I will let Cara take over. Share. All right, Cara, should be all good for you.
Well, hello, everyone. Thank you very much. And thanks, Natalie, for the invite. I'm just going to share my screen here and get rolling. Okay, hopefully you can see that okay now. Natalie, is that?
You're good to go, yep.
Okay. So I'm going to talk a little bit about workplace charging and the benefits and what to think about when you're thinking about workplace charging. And as Natalie mentioned, happy to answer questions at the end and put them in the chat, and she's going to monitor that and let me know. So of course, when I talk about EVs, I just always like to start with a little bit about the greenhouse gas emissions, because of course that's why EVs have gained so much popularity in the last few years and are going to only grow in popularity, because transportation is actually the largest emitting sector here in Ontario. And so we really can't achieve our climate goals in the province or in the country if we don't tackle transportation. And here in Ontario, we have quite an advantage when it comes to reducing emissions from transportation through electrification, because our electricity grid is already quite low emitting. Most of our electricity comes from nuclear and hydro, a little bit of renewables, and a little bit of natural gas. So for the most part, when you plug in your electric car, you're going to plug it in at night. And when you plug in at night, you're going to plug into almost, nothing is emission free, but almost emission free electricity. And so you can drop your emissions really significantly by switching to an EV. And just 1 minute on Plug and Drive. As Natalie mentioned, we're a nonprofit. We're out there trying to educate the public on the benefits of EVs. This is our EV Discovery Center in Toronto. If you haven't had a chance to visit us, I hope you will. You can make an appointment online. We are open on an appointment only basis, and you can come and learn about EVs, test drive all the latest cars with no pressure to buy anything. This is just our workshop space, which unfortunately has been closed during COVID, but of course we are hoping to open up and have more group events. So if you're looking for a cool place to host a workshop or a seminar or something, it's a great venue for that, because super fun learning environment, and you can do test drives on the breaks. We've also, in the last year during COVID, we began running something we call the MEET, the Mobile EV Education Trailer, which is a sort of a hybrid between just like a pop-up event and the EV Discovery Center, our physical bricks and mortar. It's sort of a EV Discovery Center on wheels, where we take it to the community and bring the cars, and you get all the learning, and it's right in your community. If you're interested in learning out more about that and where we're going to be, you can check our events calendar on the Plug and Drive website and reach out to me. My contact information is towards the end of this talk, and we can see if we're going to be near you. And finally, just like Natalie, as a nonprofit, we have to always remember our sponsors. We couldn't do any of what we do without our sponsors, and so we're very much appreciative of their support. Okay, so I mentioned big emission reduction. That's the huge plus of an EV, but it's not the only plus. We used to hear a lot of concerns, well, there isn't one that I like, or I'm waiting for the SUV or truck or whatever. You know, these issues are going away. Now we're above 50 makes and models available in Canada. At this time next year, there'll be over 100. So I really don't think we'll be talking about makes and models at all in a couple of years. And range was the other thing we would hear about as people were concerned that didn't go the distance. What we find now is that most of the new EVs coming out all have 300 at least, maybe 400, even 500 kilometers of range, pretty much to rival what they're used to. And range becomes less and less of a concern, although infrastructure is still important, and we're going to talk about that. Finally, the other benefit that I think sometimes people forget about is financial, and maybe right now when you're going to the pump and seeing those prices, you might think twice about it. EVs are a lot cheaper to run. They cost a little bit more to buy, but the total cost of ownership is much, much cheaper. And that's because, of course, electricity is much cheaper than gas, running around right now around a fifth to a sixth of the price. So while you're paying, like, I think over $1.50 a liter, maybe it's even more. I don't know because I don't buy gas. But I'm paying the equivalent of about 27 cents a liter equivalent. So it's just an absolute bargain. And so even if you do pay a little bit more for the car up front, you pay that off quite quickly. And actually, if you're interested in sort of doing the math and seeing your monthly savings, we have a really cool tool on our website called Find Your EV Match. It's like a microsite, and you can get there through our website, or you can go directly to this ev.pluganddrive.ca. And basically, you can enter in the current gas car that you drive and compare it to any EV on the market. And you can look at your monthly savings over time. It will graph it for you. It will show you, you know, if you put in different distances of driving, different cars to compare. It's super fun and easy to use. And you can see actually how much you'll save based on your own personal driving habits. So really handy to kind of show off that total cost of ownership, which is quite cheap. And I just wanted to make sure we were all on the same page with charging and what it's all about. For those who are new to EV, you're going to hear people talking about, you know, the levels of charging. And especially if you're thinking about putting in chargers at work, you need to understand what they mean by the different levels and what you could offer or not. Level 1 basically means a regular plug, any regular old 110 outlet. And actually, these charge any EV on the market. If you have an outlet like this, you're actually ready. And there are actually commercial type of chargers now available on level 1. And you might sort of say, what's the point? Well, in some contexts, for example, let's say you don't have a lot of surplus electricity capacity. If people are parking pretty much all day, you know, they're still going to pick up about 8 kilometers an hour that they charge. So let's say they're at work for 8 or 10 hours. You're still going to give them enough of a charge probably to easily get home. So this is an option. It's slow. That's the downside, but it's the cheapest, and it usually doesn't require you to do some kind of upgrade to your electrical system. Level 2 is, I'll tell you, is like the equivalent of a dryer plug. And I know we have some electrical folks who know more about this than me talking at the end, so I'm not going to spend time on it. But basically, like a dryer plug, it makes it the speed much quicker. You'll see these at malls, workplaces. This is typically what you would see at a workplace is level 2. That's the most common. And it's also the kind that you would have at home, you know, a level 2 charger. And it basically means you get about 30 kilometers for every hour that you charge. It's not complicated to put in. Like I said, it's like putting in a dryer plug. And this is basically a fancy wand attached to a dryer plug. And then finally, level 3, this is not something typically offered at workplaces. It's a very high powered charger. It's the kind of charger you would see at road stops, at highway, you know, interchanges where you're on a road trip. And basically it's going to give you at least 250 kilometers for, let's say, 40 minutes of charging, something like that. So it's like something you use when you're on a road trip, you stop for lunch, you do the quick charge, you pick up half an hour. So that's sort of when you hear people talking about the levels of charging, this is what they mean. And if you have questions about that, of course, happy to explain more at the end. And then people say, well, you know, I don't think EVs are really ready for prime time. There's not enough chargers out there. Well, I think the reason people think that is because, you know, they're not big neon gas stations on corners. They're small boxes underground or behind buildings. If you click on to Plug, Share, or Charge Hub, which are the 2 most popular apps on that show all the charging stations out there, you can see this is just a snapshot showing where are the chargers. The green is level 2 and the orange is level 3. And it will just give you a feeling like, well, actually, there's quite a lot. There's quite a lot, especially urban, suburban. There's quite a lot of chargers out there. So, you know, and of course you could click on any one of these little dots and it's going to tell you the location and the cost and all the information. So if you do put them at a workplace and you actually decide to make it public, your spot could show up on this kind of map. Okay, so we're going to focus the rest of my time on workplace charging and why it's so important. Now, what we found through surveys and seeing surveys done in other jurisdictions is for consumers, the workplace is the second most important place after home. And that's because most people are going to charge at home at night if they can. Now, people, if they live in multi-unit or without a garage or some other thing, sometimes don't have that option. So workplace then becomes the most important. And a study out of California showed that people who had chargers at work, even if they didn't use them, made them 6 times more likely to adopt an EV. So it's very influential. And plus people talk to their colleagues and they can learn about it. And then they decide, oh yeah, I could do it too. And they see that at work and they think, oh, that's going to make it possible for me. And the other thing it does is it sends a message to your employees that you care about climate change. It's a good sort of engagement, attraction thing. It puts your money where your mouth is when it comes to, you know, emission reductions. You know, it's easy to say we're going to be net zero by whatever date. How are you going to get there? This is one of the things you could put in the chargers for your fleet and then also make them available. And let's say your fleet only charges at night, and then make them available to employees and or the public during the day. So to really maximize the benefit of those chargers. So that's one business model that we've seen that really actually, you know, where it pays to have the chargers because you can really maximize their use. You know, I just always want to remember around, it's great to do something good for the climate. That's a lot of the motivation for folks to do this, but it's actually also an important health issue. And there's a recent study that I'm going to show you a little bit later that really showed that if we switch to EVs, there's actually a huge public health benefit in terms of asthma and hospital visits and all sorts of lung ailments. And we don't even count that when we kind of think about the benefits. And I just, it's important to think about. So that's sort of the business case, as it were, for EV chargers. And then the first thing people say, but how will I really know if people want it or going to need it? Lots of companies start with doing either some kind of stakeholder mapping or surveying of their employees. But these are some of the things, the considerations that you might want to think about. You know, you want to figure out like, okay, there's the existing demand, like you might have had a few requests, but then you got the potential demand, which is like a bunch of people that are sitting on the fence and thinking about it. And then you think, okay, well, will I charge money for it or should I make it free? How far are people driving? How much charging do they need? Is level 1 going to be good enough, or do we need to go with level 2? How do we consider the future demand? We know it's going to grow. Are there other stations near where we are that maybe we don't need to do it? There's other public stations close by and all these things. So, and then you have to think, okay, well, if we do it, what are the etiquette or the rules that we're going to set? And then the employer obviously has a bunch of its own considerations, which is like the rules, of course. They're concerned about fairness and, you know, making it accessible to the fleet, for example. You know, do you want to try to raise money or you want to do it more as a service to your employees? Also, you might be a tenant in your building. Maybe you don't own the parking and you don't have the same ability to just do it. You have to deal with a landlord. So that's another consideration. And then there's the issue of how many parking spaces are available to your particular business. It's like, how many can you take up with this? What will the gas car drivers feel? Because then you're blocking a bunch of probably closer up spots for EV, and then those people have to park further back. So you have to think about everybody, not just the EV drivers. You got to think about gas car drivers. Sometimes if you make it free, gas car drivers aren't too happy because they think, oh, sure, they get their electricity free. Well, no one's paying for my gas. So we definitely hear that often for tax reasons too, because you don't want to give a taxable benefit, that you should charge something. And let's face it, electricity isn't free. It's okay to charge something, but you don't have to charge a lot for it because it doesn't cost you a lot. So there's a middle ground. I think that's probably the sweet spot, which is not too expensive, but not free. I also find when companies made it free and then they changed it to have to pay, that really ticked all the employees off. So if you are going to make it free, make it like a 6 months free, and then make sure you've upfront said it's going to become not free, because you don't want to surprise people with like, oh, now it costs money, and you sort of, they feel like it's a bit of a bait and switch situation. And then of course there's going to be power considerations, and there's also going to be policy regulatory considerations in terms of the installation. There are some permit requirements, etc. So it's not simple, but it might not be as complicated as you think. And then, you know, that once you get to the point, okay, you've surveyed your employees, you kind of have a sense of how many, you kind of figured out that you want, let's say level 2s, but you're going to do power sharing so that they don't all turn on at once. And, you know, there's a bunch of considerations like that, but then you're going to want to think about, well, what kind of station should I get? And it, you know, again, lots of choices. There's lots of brands out there with different features. So there's stations that are networked, and there's stations that we call dumb, or that they're not networked. Now, those you can't measure your information as well, but sometimes it might make sense for you. It's a choice you can make. Do you want people to pay or not? If they're going to pay, there needs to be a payment system that costs extra money. There's other features, other smart features, and some of the good smart features is you can collect the data on the back end. So that's good too. Then there's like, do you want to operate and own it, or do you want someone else to have to own it and maintain it for you? Or you'll own it and you buy some kind of maintenance package. So there's all these options, and there's a lot of variety out there in terms of what's available. So I know this might, in like kind of fire hose fashion, seem like a lot of information, but you'll find, you know, at a certain point, you'll kind of have a good sense of which of these makes the most sense for your business. And then, you know, once you come to pricing it, you know, some folks like variable pricing where it's cheaper at night, free to employees, but not free to guests. There's QR codes. You can make different pricing for different groups. Then there's, you know, how you're going to pay. Is it going to be some kind of RFID card, or is it going to be a credit card swipe? You put a credit card on there, costs more. Again, I spoke about the owner operate. Then there's the etiquette rules. Are you going to say like once people are charged, they should move? Or is this going to be like people who come to your place, they stay and they park in one spot all day and they're not going to move? So if they're not going to move, you have to think about, they're blocking that station then for the whole day. So you have to think about, okay, well, could you incent people to move by pricing signals, or you're okay with it? There's enough chargers that they can just stay there all day. So these are the sorts of things. Then you don't want gas cars blocking these spots. So you need good signage that says, hey, you know, this is an EV spot. Non-EV cars are going to be towed. And by the way, that's allowed here in Ontario. So you can have a sign like that. Natalie mentioned that there is ZEV Funding for some of these installations. It's a great opportunity to save 50%. I mean, if you're even on the fence, this is the time. And actually, it is a good time too, while there's not as many employees at work. I know that sounds counterintuitive, and you're thinking, why put chargers at work when everyone's at home? Well, you know what? They are going to come back. And now with the parking lot not as busy, it's kind of a good time to put chargers in, because you do sometimes have to do a bunch of civil work like digging up some, you know, pavement. So you know, take that into account. And Natalie mentioned the deal on that. This is just the link to get Enercan's information, but Natalie's providing information that is, you know, where she can help you with that funding. And I just wanted to let you know that we do have a guide. It's about just a year or so old now. It has a lot of what I've talked about here, which I know has been quick in terms of all the things to think about. It's non-brand, you know, it's brand agnostic is what I mean. We don't favor any particular charger brand. It's more just to tell you all the ins and outs of what to think about when you're thinking about workplace charging. So if you're interested in the guide, you can just email us at contact@plug and drive, and we can make it available to you. It really covers all this stuff that I'm talking about in much more detail. And then finally, if you feel that you need more help than that, you need help on what supplier to choose, or you need somebody to walk you through it with the specific needs of your organization, you know, give us a call. Again, we don't affiliate with any particular brand. We just want to help people. So let us know. And with that, that's the end of my talk. Happy to take questions. This is our Plug and Drive email and the phone number for our office. Happy to hear from you.
Thank you so much, Cara. That was an awesome presentation. I think I learned a lot. So I'm
Natalie,
gonna.
do you want me to stop the share now?
Yes, if you don't mind. Perfect. All right, so I'm gonna pass it next to, we have Sean and Nathan from DHT Electrical. So they're gonna chat a little bit more about some technical aspects of EV chargers. And feel free to, if you guys have any questions, maybe you've started thinking about EV chargers and want to get more into details, please put them in the chat right now and we'll address them as well. And if you've had any questions while Cara was talking about anything she mentioned, please put them in the chat. This is the time we'll start addressing them as well as we get them. So feel free to send those questions our way. So I'll just turn it over to Sean and Nathan now.
All right, so welcome everybody. Nice to be on here. Thanks for having us, Natalie, as well. So my name is Nathan Henry, and then you'll see also my business partner, Sean Terpstra. He is the founder of DHT Electrical, and I just recently came on board as a partner in the company. So I handle all the operations and kind of back into the business and marketing. And Sean is the master electrician, and he can definitely help you with the technical questions. So yeah, just we do a lot of EV chargers. We do a lot of residential EV chargers, but we have been getting a lot of opportunity to quote on commercial EV chargers as well. So I guess I'll just kind of open it up more to questions because I'm sure there's lots here. I see one popping in the chat now. So I can answer any questions that are more related to the operational side, but if it's a technical question, Sean will definitely help you out with that as he's the master electrician.
All right, I'll just field these questions, and if anyone wants to answer, feel free to answer. Cara, jump in whenever you want to as well. So we have a question. Tesla chargers are different. Are all other brands identical? For anyone who's very familiar with EV brands.
Yeah, I see that Cara answered that in the chat. The wand is identical for all the other brands. That being said, there are adapters for Teslas that you can use other chargers for as well. That's, yeah.
Great. Typical voltages and current draw of charging units.
So that all depends on which type of unit you want to get there, Jeff. I noticed that in Cara's slide, she had at the very beginning, she had level 1s and level 2s and such. And typical chargers there, you can get a 3.3 to 19.2 kilowatt charging station. So those at 208 volts, which is typical in a business setting, run anywhere between 16 and 92 amps. And then from your 20 to 49 kilowatt units, you're anywhere between 96 and 235 amps. Then the 50 to 99 kilowatt units are anywhere between 236 and 480 amps. And then the over 100 kilowatts is over that. So yeah. As for 600 volt chargers, I'm not 100% sure on that. That's Cara, can you answer that by chance, or are they all 208 volt?
There are some coming. My understanding is that they're coming, but I mean, you'd have to, I guess, have an independent power source for that, like off the pole or something. Like there's no way a building could support something like that.
No, and this is more geared towards businesses, and I would probably say that 90 to 95% of all the businesses in the London and surrounding area in this area are 208 volts. Or have 208 volts available.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
We've got a great question here. If you're providing free access to the chargers, how can you determine how much is being used? And second part to that would be, can you have them run on a schedule so that they would only be working during business hours?
I mean, I can take a crack at that, and then maybe Sean or Nathan, you can add. I mean, look, it's basically up to you. Like all this is possible. A number of the chargers are smart and they have software that you can go in the back and see exactly how much they're used, and you can collect all that information if you want it. And then in terms of scheduling, yeah, it's possible that the power source just gets shut off at certain times to those stations. That's possible to figure out. You know what, basically anything that you want is possible as far as I understand. Sean, Nathan, anything more than that?
You can install a meter to determine how much power is being used, and I'm sure some of the units will track that for you. Can you have them run on a schedule? Yeah, you can put timers on them where they only run at certain times and not after hours, so that if you're not worried about people just parking overnight and charging off but yes, you can run them off of timers as well.
Yeah, and actually we were just discussing this, Sean, how we want to set up our EV charger. We might even put it inside the warehouse and then run a cable so it goes out back so you can charge only during business hours or when we're on site, kind of thing. So there's a lot of creative solutions you can do. There's a lot of options.
Awesome. We've got a question here from Jeff. If charging users, do they require a network connection? Can you calculate demand and see consumption if networked? Anyone?
I'm not 100% sure on that answer, Jeff. Sorry.
I can try. I mean, I think I'm understanding it. Like there are stations you can have that are dumb, that don't require a network connection. It's just like an outlet. And the downside is, you know, you can't really collect data from it. I mean, you can find out when it was plugged in and when it wasn't, but that's it. So it depends what you want. Like a lot of residential users would use a dumb one because it's just coming out, it's their own, you know, they don't need the data for any particular reason. But in a business setting, I think often people do want the data, and that's why they get a networked one. And then the challenge is like, is there, you know, which data do you want? So some of the different networks have different options of what you can collect. And I think, Natalie, I'm pretty sure the program that you're talking about, the chargers have to be smart to qualify for the funding.
I think that is, if it's for whatever NRCans, if from
I'm pretty sure that those are NRCan's rules, is that they have to be smart.
yeah, so all of
Don't
that,
quote me on that, but I'm pretty confident that's right.
the details will be in that link I sent too, just to clarify. I'm not going to say yes or no to that because I'm not 100% sure, but I can get that answer for you guys if you guys want to know that. Yeah, so Mike from LDCA, they currently just did 2 installs. He said they do both of the having them scheduled and having it up. So that's good to know if you guys have questions. So we've got a question about operating the system. So what are the costs associated with the operating system? If anyone wants to take a crack at that one.
Your cost, meaning you're going to have to pay the local distribution company your hydro costs. And then I don't know if there's a network fee for if you're going to be charging. Yeah, so there'll be a network fee probably if you're going to be charging people. And then if you're going to take credit cards, there'll be credit card processing fees as well associated with that. So there are some costs associated with that, but it all depends on which system you choose.
Exactly. Like it's really hard to say what the cost is because so many different brands have a different pricing model. Some it's like if there's a double wand, like each wand is paying a network fee and a credit card fee and all that. And then there's some brands that do it differently. So you have to kind of look into the different options.
Great. That's all the questions we have so far. If you guys have any, put them in last minute and now. Otherwise, we'll wrap up very shortly. I'll give everyone another minute just in case we get any last minute questions. I liked your point in your presentation, Cara, which I'd never thought about, is if you require employees to move out of the spot after. It's something I had never considered, and that's a great point to make. So I'm really glad that you brought that up because that is an interesting point. If you want
and
to
actually there are pricing systems where like you'll get a text to your phone, your car is charged you'll continue to pay X per half an
Oh,
hour until
gotcha.
you move. And so that actually is a very powerful motivator to get someone out of their desk chair and into the car to move to another parking spot. On the other hand, there are some workplaces, let's say it's more of a shift work type thing, that's not going to be possible. So you don't want to put your employees in a situation like if they're not allowed to leave, that they have to go out there. So, you know, what kind of thing you install will be impacted by what kind of workplace you have.
100%. We got another question here. So is the parking fee usually charged where an EV station is located in a pay and display parking lot other than the charging fee?
Again, there's like so many different models. Like we've seen where you pay for the charging, but then the parking is free, or you pay for the parking and the charging is free, or you pay for both. So, you know, it really depends. A lot of workplaces, of course, there's no parking fee. So, you know, it just honestly really depends on the situation, but you can pretty much do whatever you want.
Great. Okay, that was our last question. If anyone else has any further questions, feel free to send them to me, Natalie at London Environment on it, and I can field those questions to the appropriate person if I need to. Yeah, just get in contact with me and I can help you guys out more. If you have further questions, Sean and Nathan, DHT Electrical, be happy to help as well. Sean just put his email in the chat if you check that out. And those resources, especially that guide that Cara mentioned, I would recommend getting that if you have further questions on the different EV chargers. That looks great. And that's at contact@plugandrive.ca. So thank you, Cara, Sean, and Nathan for joining us today and for sharing all of your very valuable knowledge on EV chargers. I know that they're going to be quite frequent and there's going to be a lot of installs very soon. So I'm very excited to see the EV transformation, and thank you guys for helping inspire and give some knowledge today on that. So thank you guys for coming, and thank you everyone for attending. It was great. All right. See you later.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Everybody.